Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan from our studio at Tech Town in beautiful Detroit, Michigan. I am Jer Stace, and across the table from me is none other than the amazing Mr. Friday, Devon O'Reilly. How are you?
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. Good to talk to you, Jer.
I am so glad to see you, man. I feel like it's an anchor in my week.
Same. I feel the same way.
Wherever we may roam.
Wherever we may roam, and we do roam some places. And I heard that you roam somewhere I'm a little jealous of because I love a good distillery. And we've got some great ones in Detroit. And I heard that we've got a new one a little bit outside the city, which generally takes some planning for me to get to. But you hopped out to, I think, Troy to check out a new place.
Yes, I did. In fact, I will say, I'm going to note right up front. So I went to Shankar Distillery, the Varchas brand, which is a new brand. It's this whole idea of like blending India and America. Like they sell out into India. The owner, who has a software company, been around since like the late 90s, is really into cricket. So I'm in a niche sport, so I'm all about this.
Culturally, it's interesting. I found this out. Having Indian friends, culturally, Indians are really big into whiskey. It's a big thing in India. I don't know if everyone knows that.
Oh, for sure. In fact, the bottles, they have two kinds of eagles on them. So there's the double-headed eagle for India, and then the top has a stopper that's like the ye old traditional American eagle. You know, I'm all into like good 3D statuary, all that stuff, right? So I appreciate the details here. But me and engineer Randy went out on Chicago Road, which, by the way, did you know, according at least to the maps, Chicago Road still exists through the Mall of Oakland Mall's parking lot, like through the parking lot, like by the freeway. That's technically Chicago Road.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
I had no idea because I'm like, why am I driving through the Oakland Mall parking lot?
Huh.
And it turns out it's actually, I guess, a road.
Okay, and that's where Varchas is?
So you get off, and then you go through the Oakland Mall parking lot, and then you go to a little industrial center.
Okay.
It kind of reminded me, as far as setup, they don't have food, but as far as setup being an industrial place, it reminds me when I went to Watershed in Columbus.
Okay.
Really interesting. You go into this like industrial park, you're like, I'm going to go ahead and get machined parts from here. And no, whiskey, like they've got the barrels out
So you
front.
got to find this. You got to go seek out this place.
Oh,
you're
this is not connect. No, you're never going to discover it unless you're looking for it.
Okay.
But huge space. They have completely renovated this industrial space where they actually blew out the roof to make room for, apparently, according to them, what is the largest largest distillery in Michigan, like the largest one. This thing is more than 2 stories tall.
Wow.
They're already selling into India. They're doing a number of things kind of labeled after Detroit, but I kind of liked how they did it in that it wasn't just like Detroit something. So their Reserve 102 bourbon whiskey is named after M102. So instead of saying 8 Mile whiskey, it's Reserve 102 and it's 102 proof with woo doctor.
Oh, I like that. Okay, nice little tie in there. So yeah, I was gonna ask if you got to taste their wares.
Oh, me and Randy. Have you met us?
Just wanted to make sure. Well, also I hope that they didn't throw the event and not have some stuff to taste. So good to see.
Well, not only that, but I'm going to say this to other people. The snacks were good too. I have been to a number of these tasting events and other things where they're subpar snacks.
Okay.
Good snacks.
All right, cool.
They don't serve snacks, but they had good snacks. They threw a really good event.
But they are going to have a tasting room.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, it's a very large tasting room. The bar, and I'm going to go ahead and put some pictures and video up if you're seeing the video version of this podcast. But the bar actually has like a handmade shelving and art from India. Like it's definitely that Indian American blended theme. And I was really interested to see the number of like Detroit dignitaries, Detroit like booze people that I saw up that way. And it really gets to that comment that you and I have talked about. It's like, this is a region. Mm-hmm. And to see everybody showing up for each other, regardless of border, it just reminds me that like, sure, like on the internet, we're like Detroit this, whatever. But in reality, we're all tied together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a Detroit area distillery. We can call it, a local distillery, certainly. So you mentioned the bourbons. I'm wondering, we talked about the whiskeys. Are they going to be doing any other types of spirits?
They have a gin.
Okay.
It looks like they're going to have a rum soon. I believe, don't quote me, but believe they have the vodka. I didn't try it. It was on the menu. The cocktails were pretty solid. One thing I will say is that they started this process some years ago. So it isn't like they're doing...
Well, you have to, because you got to age the bourbon and whiskey.
Well, a lot of places that start up, they just go ahead and buy blend.
That's true, yeah.
Just little fact out there.
Right. Yeah, if a place opens up and they already have a bourbon or a whiskey or a rye, they didn't make that because you can't without aging at least 2 years.
Okay, so it's 2 years. You
2
know
years
more
for the
about it than I
bourbon.
do.
Yeah, for the bourbon, it's 2 years is traditional. Otherwise, you're blending it. So there's a lot of corners you can cut where you can blend it with different other things. But if you're starting from scratch, you gotta age it at least 2 years.
Okay. So the cocktails are really good. They're always like working out stuff. This is the grand opening of the tasting room, and it's going to have regular hours, which I will link to in the show notes. It's great to see an entrepreneur. I love local success stories, and I'll be honest, I love immigrant success stories because I think there's so much innovation that happens. So many CEOs that I know they're doing great things. Like a shout out to Jose Flores over at Anchor Automotive. Like at first you're like, oh well, it's an automotive thing or it's software or whatever, but like. A mentor of mine a long time ago told me that the money is in cement, meaning the money is in stuff where it's like, it's maybe not the sexiest thing, but you want to do the work. And I love that work ethic.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. And speaking of that, I think some people might think that bourbon or whiskey, it's not the best kind of summer sipper. I tend to disagree. But I've kind of discovered something on my own, and maybe some listeners have discovered this already. But I've recently taken my old fashions and put a little twist on them, and created a Oaxacan old fashioned, named for the Oaxacan region in Mexico.
So what does this include?
So you can get this on the menu. I'm not claiming by any means that I invented this drink.
Are you an innovator?
I am an innovator, but not necessarily in this regard. I just know some really smart people. So I've had this at a number of places, including the Bodega Bar here in Detroit. Oaxacan Old Fashioned is essentially a mezcal tequila old fashioned, which is a great way to enjoy like good tequila and good mezcal. So it's basically kind of an ounce of mezcal, an ounce of tequila, agave nectar, which is important instead of simple because it gives it a little bit more of a taste. You still do the dashes of Angostura bitters, and then usually a flamed orange peel if you can make that happen. But an orange peel will suffice, and it's a sort of super clean drink. I drink it, stir it over ice, pour it, drink it neat. It's such a nice kind of warm weather, but a warming drink. It doesn't warm your body too much, but it's fantastic. You get the kind of the smoke from the mezcal, which definitely brings that into play. So you can add more mezcal if you want it smokier. But that is my drink of the summer.
A clutch thing to have is a torch.
It is. It's easy to
Whether
buy.
it's for that or a creme brulee.
Yeah.
In fact, shout out to some friends of mine in my past. I miss you and I love you guys. We actually used to make creme brulee. Like all of us would get together as dudes.
Okay.
And make creme brulee and be creme brulee.
Dude, yes. You could do creme brulee and then just smoke some cocktails, flame up some orange peels. You could do a lot with that torch, man. That's a great tool to have for a kitchen, whether it's food or drink.
100%.
Now, a place I want to go, I stopped by, if you recall, a few episodes ago, I stopped by the coffee shop over at the former founder space, now becoming Elephant & Co. They are finally officially having their grand opening of Elephant & Co., which I could not be more excited for as someone who loves this type of space. So just to remind everyone, they've already opened up the coffee shop. There's Duke Donuts there in the mornings and the afternoons until they sell out. And from what I hear, they sell out almost every day of the Duke Donuts, so get them early. But they're doing their grand opening this Saturday, 13th, at Elephant & Co. So we're talking pizza, 20 plus self-serve taps, a whole wall of taps, because I walked in there and saw it. They're going to have, the self-serve tap, which we talk about a lot. There's different places that have done that. EMBC just does a great job, Eastern Market Brewing Corporation. They're just so good at what they do. This is another kind of entree into their offerings. I'm super excited for it, Jer. I know you and I are going to probably have a beer there very, very soon.
Absolutely. And Dane over at Ferndale Project and, all the stuff that he's doing, it's all connected to that. And wow, what an entrepreneurship story.
It really is. I mean, it's one of those, he's done some amazing stuff and taking over places that like are kind of, on the downside. He clearly has a lot of business acumen because he can take spaces that didn't succeed in a different iteration and create successful spaces. So absolute kudos to him for that.
For sure. And at one of his spaces, we should do a meetup sometime.
Definitely. Well, Elephant & Co., you're gonna find me there quite a bit, and it's kid friendly. So it's a great place to bring kids. It's got a huge patio, especially when the weather's nice. They can run around a bit on the patio. The inside is very spacious. So yeah, I mean, also from a parent perspective, I'll probably go there with my wife and friends, and I'll probably also bring my daughter there.
Sounds fun. we have a little bit of a correction to do. Let's get into the more meaty portion of our thing. A quick correction. This is really honestly a misstep, like just a misstatement. People tell me all the time, like they like that we have a show that's on the fly and we're just talking, but well informed. We do really try to nail our facts, and we screwed up a number.
I lowball. What's this? You know, the good news is I lowballed the amount of rooms at Marriott. I was under. They are the largest hotel in Michigan. That much is true, and it's by a pretty wide margin. I thought it was because they had 700 plus hotel rooms, which would be a pretty large hotel, but it's actually what 1,200 plus,
1,300
plus. Let's get that right. 1,300 plus hotel rooms at the Marriott in the RenCen. So that was much bigger number than I realized.
Well, and I want to talk about the RenCen a little bit for a minute, because there was, of course, and we covered it really quickly on the show, that Dan Gilbert has the possible option of buying into that thing. I wanted to mention that to you, but I feel like there's ideas percolating around.
Yeah,
this.
I think it's going somewhere. I don't want to say there's been tons of speculation. Obviously, Dan's now kind of got a piece of that. We don't really know the exact details of that agreement. You know what I mean? We know that Dan has this option to buy, and Bedrock is kind of taking on some of that responsibility of the RenCen. If I was to speculate, it's certainly heading in the direction of Dan and Bedrock straight up, purchasing the RenCen and the property, and then the question is, what do you do with it? And there's all sorts of speculation, and I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm gonna call this informed speculation. So this is
not bold speculation,
no,
but
this is
still speculation.
This is something I've heard from someone who would be very close to the decision makers in this process if it were to go this way. So let's just call it informed speculation, but I think it's good news, frankly. The first thing we'll say, and we've said this, the 1,300 plus room Marriott, that middle tube, let's call it the 734, 7 something foot tube, whatever it is, I don't know the exact number, but it's something over 700 feet. That's not going anywhere. That is a successful hotel. That Marriott does really well. So the big tube isn't going anywhere.
The big tube.
It's very successful, not coming down. That's a very successful piece of the pie. Where the issues are, the vacancy, the kind of general malaise of the RenCen, that all exists in those kind of those side tubes, which there are, I believe, 6, because there's the 4 that surround it.
There's 4 surround it, and then I think it's 7 in total. The 2, they're owned by somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
So the 2 on the side have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they're owned by a completely different group.
Yes, exactly. So we're talking about those 4 side tubes those are the ones, like, what are you going to do with them? Because they clearly don't have the occupancy right now. There's no plan to really gain a lot of occupancy. So what I'm hearing is that at least a couple of those will probably come down if this plan, if Dan gets in, the plan continues to emerge. What I think the good news is what I'm hearing is, if 2 or more of those smaller towers come down, the idea would be to bring this gem of a riverfront that we have closer to downtown and really bridge that gap. So as almost once you're at Jefferson, you're at the riverfront, and there's more green space, there's more pedestrian walkways, there's more bike paths, there's way more connection, so that when you're standing on Jefferson Avenue outside of the KMAC or outside of One Woodward, you're basically on the cusp of the riverfront, where now it feels very separate still. You still can't really see the riverfront. So that would be really cool, I think.
I wonder which 2 you take out if you're going to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I
at least 2. I think at least 2.
Okay.
And surround it with green space, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, what you would do is similar to, in my mind, you've already got those platforms. You've got other things you could do where you basically make more park and just spread that in, or you build around it. And, because I know that there's like different like infrastructure things and whatever, but there's so much you could do creatively. What if you even took part of it and put some of it like underground and then put berm over? I'm starting to think of
you're getting rampant,
crazy.
Jer. You're getting rampant speculation.
Now I'm to rampant, but I think there could be something beautiful done.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see if they do take those out, which 2 they do. Now I always want, like, me, I'm like super bullish on apartments. I want to see as much done as possible.
It's such a hard conversion. We've always
said so you think the conversion is a no-go?
It's not a no-go, but maybe you could do 1 tower. You could do 1 tower. Everything I've heard.
So 1 office, 1 residential.
Sure. Yes.
Because there is enough there to support an office.
Right.
I think
You could do, and I think that maybe that's the Goldilocks answer is you take two down, you have one that is dedicated to office, one that is going to be an expensive retrofit, but you could do some kind of residential in there. And then the rest you kind of turn to park space, green space, all that sort of thing. You know, when we talk about caps, and I'm kind of bearish on the 375 cap and all that.
there is a survey, by the way, for the DDP for if you have thoughts, whether they're aligning with Devon or mine or anyone else, there's a survey out by the DDP on that right now.
That's where I think you could do a nice, it wouldn't, whatever you call it, a cap, but making that Jefferson, like making that all feel like one space, making it not feel like I'm crossing, a long multi-lane avenue to get there. I think that's where you put green space over it, kind of, or under it, like you said. I think that's another way to do it.
Okay, that could be really
Instead of doing tunnels over, let's just kind of smooth that all out.
All right. I want to hear what people think. dailydetroit@gmail.com. I want to know, 2 towers, take 2 down. What do you think? This is interesting to me. This is like the middle solution.
This is what I'm pushing now. I've heard it and now I like it.
So here's the thing for me with this. I really want to see something architecturally interesting. Have you seen some of the buildings in other cities where they actually do a mix of glass wall and then like porches or green wall where it's like cut out a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
That could be really pretty. Where you go in there and you take some of it and it's like balconies or whatever for residential, but there's some greenery, there's some spaces up top where it breaks up that glass wall a little bit. I also think it would be better for birds.
You got to think about the birds for sure. And I will say my last thing, and I don't want to end this on a sour note, but the way that Dan and Bedrock work is they really focus on the big projects, certain projects at a time. And so at a point it was the book tower. Obviously the Hudson site has been a big focus. They're wrapping that up. What next is Monroe Blocks. I think before the RenCen gets addressed, they're gonna do whatever is going to be done on Monroe Block. So don't think that, I'm not saying that the RenCen thing is going to happen in the next 1, 2, 3 years. I think you're going to wait a little bit.
So you're going to say see Monroe Block start, and then it's going to be a few years. So that would make sense.
That's how they do their projects usually.
So that would make sense with the idea that there's a number of restaurants they're just throwing in the towel right now. I did hear that Andiamo did a remodel.
Yeah, apparently they did a remodel.
But they're kind of a destination. They're a little different than the others. Like people in the building don't go to Andiamo. You go to Andiamo.
Right. So you have a couple destinations.
Or was it Joe Muir?
Oh, Joe Muir.
It was Joe Muir. Apologies.
So it was Joe Muir, which I really like Joe Muir. Andiamo is, I think, still there, right? I think they're still operating as far as I know. I mean, some people on the ground who work in the RenCen might be able to tell us. I don't make it out there as much. I believe the Andiamo is still operating. But I was going to say that there are a couple destinations still at the RenCen. You have Joe Muir, which recently got renovated. You also have the Highlands. At the top of the RenCen. I think that would still be a destination spot. It's a high-end restaurant. The big kind of round restaurant and bar up there. So you do have a couple destinations still at the RenCen that will still attract people no matter what's going on there.
All right, let's rapid fire through 3 things that I think we should talk about. Let's talk trash first. Priority Waste is facing big delays in trash collection across the region after taking over residential accounts from GFL Environmental earlier this month. Many residents are reporting missed pickups. There's a lot of concerns. I'm seeing stuff all over from our listeners and our members, social media, everything else, especially because in the city, there's a couple of contractors. So there's some areas of the city that are all right, and there's others that are not so great. And also, this is affecting the suburbs for sure. The company, for their part, is saying that hundreds of inoperable vehicles inherited from GFL is a primary cause, and they are working to repair them. Other things I've heard is that they're working on rehiring employees as part of this transition. Devon, this is not just limited to the city of Detroit. I want to open this up for a little bit of discussion because, people do not like trash.
Are you starting a new segment, Trash Talk? Trash Talking with Jer and Devon.
Well, listen, as a longtime resident, I'm glad that this is a problem. I remember when, things did not get regularly picked up. I've been around long enough so that this is a problem is a positive, I guess, in a way.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm gonna take the other side of that in the sense that I'm going to speak from a privileged standpoint of living where I live in Dearborn. We have traditionally had excellent trash services. It's one of those things where if the trash is even picked up late in the day, it's enough to be, on the Facebook groups. Where's the trash pickup? Where's the trucks? I haven't seen it. So we are very spoiled when it comes to our waste services. Having said that, I can speak again personally. We have definitely felt this transition or whatever the heck is going on because our trash was out for, I think, 3 days ultimately, which is unheard of. I mean, people were calling the mayor's office. There was I think a Channel 7 news story about Dearborn specifically. It was a big thing, and it's frankly, it's like that's not okay. It's not okay to be delinquent on trash service. I don't care if you're having a transition. The GFL trucks were picking up trash on time 3 weeks ago, so I call BS on some about breaking down. They didn't all of a sudden start breaking down. They worked 3 weeks ago. You have the same trucks, so I'm a little scared for this transition because we did have good services. I mean, GFL, they had their misses, but Priority needs to get their trash together here, get their crap together, because people aren't going to stand for this, especially in places like Dearborn, I guess, that are used to really good services.
I mean, we're not going to stand for it here either.
Exactly.
I feel like that this needs to be made a priority.
Okay. The waste needs to be made a priority. Do what you say you're supposed to do in your name.
Right. Let's talk downtown stuff. The Reckmeyer apartment project has secured over $11 million in public financing. I believe this is the last piece of the puzzle, along with an $8.2 million community revitalization program loan. This $38 million project by Basco of Michigan will convert and expand 3 existing buildings on Broadway into a 9-story residential building with 80 units. We have talked about this one just a little bit, Devin, but it looks like this thing is now shovel ready and actually going to have a date and start in September.
Yeah, and Broadway, really kind of the last block of undeveloped real estate in the downtown core. Would you say?
Pretty close.
It's got some things that have popped up. It's now got like the one mic. It's got a couple of different bars and stuff, but it really hasn't. I guess the Siren kind of faces it, so you have the kind of the entrance to the Siren Hotel. But that east side of Broadway has been really just. Nothing's been going on. It's been a desert for the last handful of years.
I actually drove it a couple of days ago and thinking to myself, this is actually going to look really good.
Yeah, it's good news. Absolutely. And we talked about it. It's kind of cool what they're doing. It's a little bit kind of a middle ground for development, whereas they're not just taking an existing structure and rehabbing the existing structure, and they're not tearing down and rebuilding. They're keeping the facade on the first couple stories and then building back a little bit, new build after that. So, from street level, you'll be walking by, you'll see a historically preserved facade, but then if you look up, kind of step back a little bit, that's where the new build is going to be, where it's going to go up, 8 or so stories. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this. I know that our member-only Discord, if you're a Patreon member, you can be a part of it. They were buzzing about this one, like buzzing.
Yeah, I lost track of all the notifications from people talking about this.
Yeah, my phone was just like literally dancing across my desk from those guys. So
a lot of boots on the ground checking this out, and it looks like it's moving ahead. So again, small developer. I mean, small-ish. You know what I mean? Basco. It's a local developer. It's a small-ish developer, and so that's really cool. We like to see these projects from small local developers get traction.
I also like that there's going to be a complete street wall. So because you've got other buildings across from it, I was driving the other day and I was just thinking to myself about how much I don't like when a parking lot is right across the street. Like there's so much more we could do if we tuck the parking or put it in a garage or do different things to create true city street walls. And if you've traveled to cities that really function, those street walls are so important.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah, because the last thing you want in any street is just to be broken up by these like expanses of like parking spaces. Like anything but that is preferable.
Before we go, I feel like I need your take on something.
Oh, I'm all too open to providing takes on anything and everything. Clearly,
well, yeah. So I want your take, and then we're also going to share the people's takes. Earlier this week, Norris and I talked about the Midtown Target project. So the first take before I get into other people, the first thing I'll say, and then you can react to the people. Are you surprised it's dead? The Target in Midtown project?
No, I'm not surprised. I think we said this off air. Big ups to Norris. I listened to all the episodes with you and him, and all the daily episodes. But I just find myself agreeing with Norris 99% of the time. So he hit it on the head. No, City Club Apartments. Like once you knew like they were involved, it's like they don't have the best track record, especially when it comes to quality and finishing projects on time. And so no, I was already kind of down on it and not surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, that is an opinion from both of us. But yes, I hear you. So let's talk about the people and their thoughts on Target. Jonathan wrote in that who needs big box stores like Target? I don't get why we care. Michelle, I'm sick of going to Target in Madison Heights. By the way, I was just there this week. Yes, I sometimes see more people from Detroit at Target in Madison Heights or the one in Allen Park on the hill. than I do
My Target.
like around town. Like, well, yeah. And I see a lot of folks there because a lot of people do actually use Target. I had a neighbor for a while. Shouts out to him. He's so excited about Target. He just really wants Target so bad. And he's like just like a normal dude. Anyway, Ashley with 2 E's wrote in, big box stores suck. They eat and crush small businesses. We should not have them. And Darnell writes in, Norris is right. Put it on the east side. Thanks for keeping it live from Outer Drive.
I don't agree with that. We don't have any.
Who don't you agree with?
That big box stores, crush small business. They're providing something that small businesses don't provide. There's no small business that provides all the things that Target has. Like I'm wearing this shirt is from Target. It's like I can't. There's not small businesses that
Are we almost matching? Hold on. Are we almost green?
color-wise.
Oh, geez.
Our colorways are pretty.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Anyway, I just Target is its thing. Like you can't hate on Target. I think Norris said this as well too. But man, they just do a great job of what they do. And what they're not. I don't think they're putting anyone out of business. This isn't like a Dollar General or like some discount grocery coming in and knocking people out. Like, man, Target offers stuff that nobody else in an area is going to have. So
or can offer cost effectively.
So I don't see them as any kind of a cannibalistic or intrusive space. There are big box stores like that. I'm not saying there are not big box stores like that. Particularly maybe like hardware stores. We've discussed the hardware store thing. But for Target, no, man, you want a Target. You want a Target in your neighborhood. Trust me.
Yeah, I feel like there's room for both because your life needs both. I buy lots of small business stuff. I'm always paying a premium for local stuff, especially if it makes sense. Now I'm not going to pay like double, but I will pay a premium for local stuff and things. But there's other stuff like I went and bought shampoo. Like I'm not going to get a better price, and it's there at Target, and it's great. It's right there, all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, toys, baby items, clothes at an affordable price. Like, there's no small businesses that offer that, fortunately or unfortunately. Like, I would have to go to a mall. Basically, all Target is replacing is a mall.
Or Amazon.
Yeah, it's a mall or Amazon. So that's who Target's replacing. A giant mall or basically Amazon, which in that case, they're the little guy. Target's a little guy compared to Amazon. So, I don't know. I'll ride or die with Target. I got one close to me. As Norris said, us West Siders are a little spoiled. We don't necessarily we're not in a Target desert over here on the West Side, but if you want to put another one over here, more power to you. I'd love to see it.
All right, with that, we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes who helped make this thing happen. Thanks to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Without you, none of this is possible. I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devin O'Reilly.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town. Talk next week.